I'm Mark Hoebee, Paper Mill's producing artistic director, and this is Babbling by the Brook. Today we are talking to a young lady who literally grew up at Paper Mill Playhouse. She started with us when she was a freshman in high school, coming directly from Ridgewood, New Jersey. And she's gone on to be a big Broadway star, winning both a Drama Desk Award and a Tony. Please help me welcome Ali Stroker. Hey, Ali. Oh my gosh.
Hi.
Thank
So good to
for
see
joining
you.
us. So good to see you too. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You look amazing. Where are you?
I'm in New York. I'm in my apartment. We have been out of the city during this time in Massachusetts, and we're actually leaving the city again. We're going to upstate New York, and it's been a wild time.
Yeah.
Truly.
Kind of unbelievable.
Yes.
But what's interesting about it is I find that oddly I've been connecting with a lot of friends, and I never used really FaceTime, and the Zoom format is new, but it's great to be able to sit and have a conversation like we're doing now, and actually to look at you. It's different than just like being on the phone or via email or text, which seemed to be the way for a long time.
Yeah, this is amazing. I mean, basically my entire life shifted, and I was on Zoom every day.
We all live on Zoom, I know. But it's funny, so talking about where you are in New York, and we've known each other for quite a while.
Yes.
But you grew up in Ridgewood.
Yes, I did. In Bergen County. It's beautiful. Ridgewood is amazing. Ridgewood has been so good to me and my family, and I feel very fortunate to have that community behind me.
Yeah, and you were there when we first met. That's where you were in high school, Ridgewood.
Yeah, I was a freshman in high school.
Were you a freshman?
Yeah, I was 14.
Oh my goodness. I remember because you auditioned for our summer musical theater conservatory program.
Yeah, and I did it for 2 summers.
Right. I remember one year you were the fairy godmother in a Cinderella sequence.
Yeah, that was the Rodgers and Hammerstein summer.
Right.
And then the second summer was Lerner and Lowe.
Right. Oh, I know what you sang.
Right?
Hurry, it's lovely up here.
Oh, yes. Hey, buds below, life is where to grow. With the pot.
With the flower, right? Did it actually grow while you were singing? I don't remember that part.
I think it did. And then there was like a puppet inside where I put my hand in.
But anyway, I remember you being just a shining light then, and so energetic and sweet and amazing. And then you went away from us for a while. You attended NYU Tisch, right?
Yeah, I went to NYU and studied musical theater and loved it. It was so fun and challenging, And then I graduated in 2009, and that's kind of when things began, I suppose.
Are you still connected to Tisch? Do you speak to their student body there?
Yeah, I spoke to them actually during this time. I did like a Zoom call, and still connected with a lot of the teachers there. And I had such a positive and challenging and growing experience there. It was sort of my first real taste of like what maybe the industry and what New York would feel like, in that people were not immediately accommodating to me. And so I had to learn how to advocate. I had to learn how to translate. In dance classes, I had to learn how to translate all of the movement for my body and in my wheelchair. And that was really challenging at first because I didn't feel necessarily supported, but I realized that the only person I need to support me in this is me. Right. And I just had to become really driven to figure it out. And I did. And I was so, that set of tools that I built in those moments, I use every single day of my life, and especially in my career, because I don't wait for anybody to help me or fix anything for me. Right. Like I do all of it on my own.
Right, it's your reality, and so you just deal with it. I remember that as in the conservatory audition that we always did a dance segment.
Yeah.
You came out and adapted and did the choreography, and it was fantastic. So you graduated in 2009. And then I think
Yes.
we saw you shortly after, like it was 2011. I remember those auditions. We were doing 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, and you came in
Hmm.
audition. You always had a spectacular voice, but your acting was so good, and
Oh, thank you.
it was great. And that was a co-production with Philadelphia Theater Company.
Yes, which was so cool. And I'm actually still in touch with so many of the people that we did that with. That was such a special group of actors. And I did Spelling Bee again 2 years ago, which is so funny, out in Cleveland.
Did you play Olive again?
Yeah, yeah. But I did it and I was like, this is the last time I can do this because I'm starting to age out of it.
I don't think so. You can still,
Well, it felt a little bit that way, but
but that was a spectacular production. It was a great collaboration for us, and you were terrific in the role. And it was, I remember, we were, we've always been an advocate for access and of all sorts, but somebody had told us that that was kind of a milestone in the world of actors who use wheelchairs, right?
hmm
In the musical world,
hmm
that was kind of a milestone. You performing at Paper Mill, which was a little shocking to me, but
yeah, I mean, it's always kind of shocking to me that like we don't see more people with disabilities and in chairs and with all different kinds of abilities. Theater's pretty able-bodied if you look around. But at the same time, I just have always found it to be a really cool opportunity because when you bring disability on a stage and maybe it's not specifically written for, it's not a disabled character. What I love about it is that it just adds so many layers to the story and to that character. And what I also know about life is that you don't have to talk about disability in order for it to be in the room.
right,
And what's powerful is that an audience is then with the disability and with this person who has a different ability for 2 hours. And all of a sudden at the end, you're sort of like, oh, like, I feel like I know this person and I feel like I understand how they move. And we give permission to audiences to watch
right,
and to understand because socially we're taught not to stare, not to ask questions. But in theater, we say stare, we say look, we say become a part of this world. And I think that's one of the things I love most about being an actor with a disability is that we give permission to allow people to be with this thing that is very clear that many people are uncomfortable with.
right. That's fascinating, that perspective. And when we talk about theater and about opening people's eyes to a variety of experiences they may not have in their everyday life, or like you said, that they avoid in their everyday life, and giving them the permission to stare and ask questions. And that was one of the things I loved about that show Spelling Bee. It's about these kids who are struggling with, each one has their own issues and identity and challenges, right? And like you said, it's just another layer of people's reality. Um,
Yeah,
and it was spectacular. Um,
thanks.
and then I think, I mean, I know you Glee Project was right after that, right? Glee, which was one of
Yes.
my favorite shows.
Yes.
Really, I think has uh, that the combination of that and High School Musical really brought musical theater back into the vernacular again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It
I mean,
became pop culture.
and people just it exploded. People were loving it. And so talk to us a little bit about that experience, because you did the Glee Project and then you were on Glee,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. What's crazy is that I was invited to the auditions for the Glee Project season 1, but I was doing Spelling Bee with you guys. And
Oh,
of course, my theater, self was like, I am doing something right now. I could never leave the show or whatever. So I ended up auditioning for the second season. And I got on the show, The Glee Project, which was a reality show where you competed for a role on Glee. And at first I was a little bit hesitant because I was like, I don't know if I want to do reality television. I had a lot of judgment around it. But it was actually this perfect opportunity because I was able to not only perform and do my thing, but also tell my story. And I knew that there was a lot of people that were very curious, and it put me kind of really out into the commercial world, which is what I wanted. And Glee was a show that kind of changed my life, because I, for the first time, saw someone in a character in a wheelchair that was singing and performing, and I identified, and so I was very, very excited about the world in which Glee existed in. And so I was like, I want to be on the show. And then I ended up being one of the runners up of the reality show, and ended up getting to do an episode on the show. And that was so incredible and exciting. And it was one of those moments where I was like, I did it. And I think along the way, there were these real moments where I realized when I set my mind to something and when my will is strong, I can achieve whatever I want.
Yeah.
And it started to make me feel really powerful, and like I was able to not only go after my dreams, but make them my reality. And, I've worked really hard, and I have stayed really focused. And in a career like this, it's so difficult to sometimes stay focused on your goals, because there are distractions, and there are people telling you who you are and what you should be doing. And I just knew I wanted to be on stage. I knew I wanted to be known. I knew I wanted to be seen. And I, in some ways, have always felt seen, because people have always looked at me out in the world. And I was talking about this the other day, but I really believe that part of why I have created this life for myself is because if I was going to be stared at, and if I was going to be looked at by the world, I didn't want to just be looked at because I had a disability. I wanted to be looked at because of my work. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's part of the whole picture, is like why I wanted this kind of career and this kind of success.
And when did you first start thinking you wanted to be a performer? I mean, were you like?
I was 7, and I was introduced to theater, and I knew that we were doing a backyard production of Annie down at the Jersey Shore. Our neighbors, the oldest daughter had just come home from Stage Door and decided she was going to direct this neighborhood production. And she cast me as Annie, and we went into rehearsal, and she sort of had this real confidence about her that was like, we're going to do this the professional way, even though we were in, the backyard. And I just loved kind of the intensity of it, and the seriousness and the drama and the, just the tone, the feel. It was like, this is where I belong. And then when I did the show at the end of the summer, it was the first time I got up in front of people, and I felt really powerful. I felt like, oh, I can take the power back. I don't have to be a subject, you know what I mean? I can be the one who's telling the story, that's singing the song, that's center stage. I can be the star of this. I don't have to allow other people to take my power away. And I think being a little girl in a wheelchair, there was a lot of oh, I'm so sorry, and the pity game. And I just wasn't interested. It wasn't the life I wanted. It wasn't the road that I wanted to go down. So this, at the time it was a passion, which I've turned into my career, was in many ways the thing that saved me and made me feel like I have something to say and I have a gift to give, and I'm not going to allow my disability to dictate the way that my life is supposed to go. I'm going to write this story.
That other people see you. That's great. It's writing your own story. That's absolutely it. It's funny, 2 things. One, that backyard production came full circle because you were in Annie at the Hollywood Bowl, right?
I know. That was wild. I mean, doing a show at the Hollywood Bowl, Mark, is insane because you rehearse for 3 weeks. Yeah. And then It's the biggest venue. I really have not done much outdoor theater, but like the sound is so crazy, and like you're out there and it's hot and there's like bugs, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this like, where are we? What are we doing? And everything is so large because, you know, the venue, the seats go back so far. So like people need to be able to see, obviously, from the last row. But I had never done anything like it, but it was so fun. We had such a great time.
Going back, you would be such a great teacher because if you could bottle your confidence and journey, every actor fights that, right? Every actor fights the distractions, fights how to keep focused, fights how to be true to themselves and get other people to see them in the way they want to be seen, as opposed to in the box, you know, that people want to put them in. I mean, I was a dancer, right? That was my career. And I was in the dancer box and I was fine, but I wanted to be seen as an actor, and I can understudy those roles and I could play that part, but we all get sort of put in that box. So your journey, whatever that is, if you could bottle it, you'd be a gazillionaire because you could sell it to every actor that you know that is.
Thank you.
Oh, please. But anyway, then after Glee, you came back to New York again. The next time I really reconnected with you was that revival of Spring Awakening.
Yeah, that was so cool.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, that was awesome. So if you were to have ever told me that I was going to make my Broadway debut by doing a show in Los Angeles, I would have told you you're crazy. Because in my mind, I was like, you have to be in New York to be on Broadway. And what ended up happening was Michael Arden was directing a production of Spring Awakening with Deaf West, which is a theater company in California that works with both deaf and hearing actors. And so I went in to audition. And I sang and I did one of the scenes, and then I was called back, and for the callback we had to sign Purple Summer, which is the last song of the show. And they taught us the sign language kind of as like a rehearsal before the callback, and then they sent us home with videos, and I like spent hours working on the sign language because it was a lot like dancing. At the time, I sort of was like, this is like choreography. And I remember being the callback, and the first time I was singing and signing with a group of people that were doing they were either singing and signing, or just signing, or just singing with their instruments. The first version of the show was at a school in downtown LA, in a tiny little black box. And I, to this day, still think it was maybe one of the most powerful shows I had ever been in, because it was so intimate to be in that space doing Spring Awakening and having the sign be so close. Like you really felt like you were in the show. And it was beautiful. And we sold it. We kept selling out and selling out and selling out and selling out. And so a producer then decided to take it to Beverly Hills, to the Wallace Annenberg. And we did a run there. And then there were all these, talk about, it's going to go to Broadway, it's going to go to Broadway. And I was like, I will believe it when I see it on paper, because people talk. And so like maybe a month or two later, we found out that we were opening in New York like that fall. So it was fast. It was so fast. And I moved back to New York, and my life changed so quickly. I fell in love with my boyfriend, who I'm still with now, and the show just like changed my life. I made my Broadway debut, and it was all like in 1 month. I like made my Broadway debut, met or reconnected with David, and started dating him. It was just like so crazy how your life can be one way, and all of a sudden it just changes. And so that was sort of the story of how Spring Awakening came into my life.
It was a brilliant production. So
Thank you.
And I saw it twice. And was so moving. And like you said, I don't play an instrument, but I've always watched people play the guitar and sing or accompany themselves on a piano and think, wow, that's like two separate parts of the mind. It's the same idea that you're talking about, speaking and signing singing and signing at the same time. It's a challenge, especially if you don't grow up with that whole, it's a different language. Signing is a different.
Absolutely. And what I loved about what Deaf West does, and it's really so in line with what I do, is that they take something that's a lot of the world sees as a limitation, and they make it and they turn it into an opportunity. I live by this motto of turning your limitations into your opportunities. And on stage, there's so many creative ways to do that. And I think it's such an opportunity for a producer, for a director to bring disability into the room and into a show, because it just, it makes you think differently, and all of a sudden you're creating in a different way. And I love that.
It also brings in different people, brings in a different understanding and another level to what's happening on stage. And like you said, it's funny, learning the sign language was like choreography, and seeing it in that show and with the musical, there's a lyric sense about it. And I remember two things. One, I remember, well, you broke another barrier there. You were the first actress to use a wheelchair in a musical on Broadway, or first actress in a wheelchair at all on Broadway. Which one?
Yeah. The first actor in a wheelchair on Broadway. I remember that happening, and I was sort of like, that can't be true.
Oh, that's right.
And then I was like, I guess it is.
Yeah. And I remember because my partner Larry works for CBS News, they came and did a story on that, and I was there at the theater that day with you, which is so exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was tremendous. Yeah, and then so many things. You've done TV and other things, but we should jump in and talk about Oklahoma.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, wait, I remember. You also came to the summer conservatory and taught the sign language for Purple Summer to our kids. Do you remember that? And
yes,
we
I do.
incorporated it in the show.
Into the show. That's right.
That group, that segment of kids got together every day in the morning before any class, and they rehearsed. They wanted it to be perfect. They wanted to make you proud and to honor that project. And
that was so cool.
I wanted to include that. So let's talk about, how did Oklahoma come about? And
yes.
Oh my gosh, such a groundbreaking production. And then you winning the Tony Award. I mean, there's so much to that.
Yeah, Oklahoma really was quite an experience. I mean, I'm still just like 6 months out of it, so I feel like I'm still processing it. Yeah. So I auditioned for the show. It was going to be at St. Anne's Warehouse, and it was a production of Oklahoma that had been done before out at Bard Theater as part of their like summer. They work on new ideas and new either revivals or new works. Anyway, so I audition. I end up getting the role of Ado Annie, and we go into rehearsal 2 years ago this summer, and it was crazy, Mark. I was working on this show in a way that I had never worked on a musical before. It was really challenging, and it was also exciting to be pushed in a way that I'd never been pushed. Daniel Fish is a very, very, very smart director, and so the way in which he works is so different, and it forces you as an actor to really have to you have to explore other ways in doing things, because that's what he wants, and he doesn't want to do musicals like they've always been done before. And so that's kind of how that beginning journey went. And so we did a run at St. Anne's, sold out, got extended. It was really, really great. And then there was again talks of it going to Broadway, and I was like, where are they going to do this? Because it was set in a very specific way. But then I found out, so my boyfriend had been working on Once on This Island, and before it was even publicly announced that it was closing, I knew because he had found out. And Circle in the Square opened up, which is a theater in the Round that was perfect for Oklahoma. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, this is happening. And we transferred, and I had never been a part of a show in which it really, it was like the underdog. And not that Spring Awakening wasn't, but in so many ways, people came to see it and they really respected it. This show, it was not for everyone. And so coming into Circle in the Square and opening on Broadway, I was very nervous to kind of like feel the response, because it was not for everyone. It was not everyone's taste. And as an actor and in this specific production, you're very aware of the audience. This production, the house lights were up in the audience. You could see people's responses, which was so hard not
And they
to
were
take
sitting
in.
on stage. People were sitting on stage at picnic tables eating chili.
That's right. Like they were all a part of it. And then once we like started previews and we opened, there began to be talks about like Tonys and Allie may be nominated. And I remember being a little bit nervous because I already felt so kind of consumed by doing this show 8 times a week. It was a 3-hour musical, and so it was a lot. But I ended up being nominated, which was like crazy. I mean, I remember just feeling like, what? This is like the first time I've ever actually like played like a real role. My role in Spring Awakening was real, but I was one of the friends, so it was a small part. And this was like a supporting part, and Ada Lanny is sort of this iconic character and role. And then I ended up winning the Tony, which was so wild. It was a year ago yesterday, and it was one of the coolest moments of my life, because I think all those years of like wanting to prove myself and wanting to be seen in the way that I wanted to be seen, like it all happened.
Wow.
And it changed my life. It changed my life, and it's been amazing. It's been challenging. And the rest of the run of Oklahoma was really hard, but also really awesome and exciting, and so much support and so much love and so much joy. And winning the Tony meant so much to so many people, which was really special for me, because you hope that your work impacts people or the world, and I felt like that was a moment where it really did. And so yeah, and that was a year ago yesterday, so I'm like still kind of in it. Like figuring all of this out, this sort of a new thing. Another thing that I do want to like articulate is that one of the things that has been sometimes kind of confusing is that I was on this trajectory that kind of felt very like even. Like I was like building this career and it was really even. And then I like won the Tony, and all of a sudden it was like, you're like in another place. And that was like a little bit scary, because all of a sudden I was like, I can't mess up. I can't like ever be off. People expect something specific from me. And those have been like mind games that I've had to like work through and talk about and connect with still being an artist, because that has always been the thing that's fulfilled me. And awards can really be disruptive in a really positive way, and unfortunately in negative ways for people. And so I've just really tried to stay grounded and real about all of it, because the world tells you very, very, very powerfully that you are now the top. And as we know in this industry, you're at the top, and then all of a sudden you fall to the ground. And so I just am very cautious about like, I am a Tony winner to the world, and who am I as an artist when I am alone in a studio singing or working with my theater company or doing the things, teaching, who am I? That to me, my identity is so important for me to have hold of and to have some control over, because the world will tell you one thing, and those are positive things, but they're not always helpful in your work as an artist.
And like you said, so much of this business is out of your control and up
Mhm.
and down and all of that.
Yep.
And it goes back it's amazing that this circles right back to where you began and where we began this conversation, which was you at 7 years old playing Annie in the backyard saying, I'm going to take control and I'm going to be me. I want the world to see me.
Yeah, and I think also for graduating seniors right now, like if they're watching this kind of thing, like stay focused on your work. Like where you end up performing and where you end up doing that work will kind of decide on its own. It's so interesting as I've seen my friends, like they've all done exactly what they were meant to do so far. And this is a long road. This is like not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's an Ironman. Like this is long. This
Yeah.
is not something that you need to like check every box off by the time you're 25. Like this is committing years and years and years and your life to this work, and it is worth it.
Yeah.
I
You
don't
have
I
to
don't
love it. Yeah.
I love it. It's where it's not just my work, it's my passion, it's my entire life. But it's so important to know that if you stay committed to doing the best work that you can do, you're going to find all the places that you are supposed to perform.
I love you. You are such a great part of the Paper Mill story,
Thank
the
you.
Paper Mill family. And I just am so honored to be your friend and proud of all your success. And just thank you so much for sharing
Thank
part of
you.
your life with us. And we will be watching the rest of your journey, which I know is going to be long and fruitful.
Thank you. I love you, and I love Paper Mill Playhouse. It was a home for me as a high school, aspiring actor. And then when I moved out into the professional world, I got to work professionally at Paper Mill, and the energy there is so creative and so warm and so welcoming. And it's in New Jersey, which is my home state. So I am biased. I love Paper Mill.
We love you too. And after your movie or before, come back and do another show for us.
Yes, I'd
All
love
right.
it. Thank you.
All right. Love you.
Love you.
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks for joining us here today. Make sure to come back next week when we'll be talking with my good friend, director choreographer Dennis Jones. See you then.